Is new.
This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference. Please be patient. We will do our best to be efficient and allow everyone to participate equitably. This meeting is also being broadcast and streamed online by FCTV in real time. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. All right. We have a full attendance tonight. We always appreciate the assistance of all our staff members, Jen, Kevin, Alyssa, Mark, Amy, and Susan. We have a full contingent of commissioners tonight. Thank you, everyone. And I'd like to remind you that for commenting, I'll call on each of you at the appropriate time so we don't speak over each other, and that the votes will be done by roll call. So when I call your name, please state your name and your vote. And that's even if you've made the motion or the second. To our public participants, there will be an opportunity for public comment for each hearing. If you'd like to comment on a particular hearing, you may submit any comments or questions via the chat function once that hearing has been opened. At the appropriate time, I'll call for public comments, and any submissions will be read into the record. The link and further instructions are posted on the agenda. First up tonight is other business. First item is discuss and recommend Holman Ladd conservation restriction to be held by the 300 committee. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am promoting Jessica Rittenauer up to present the CR to the board.
Thank you.
Jessica, whenever you're ready.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Jen, and thanks, Chairman Matthews. I did want to also mention that Laurel Holman and Larry Ladd, the property owners, they are signed in or they're watching this Zoom. So I don't know if you, Jen, are you able to elevate them? I just wanted them to be able to answer any questions along with me in case the Concom has questions. So it's
I'm promoting Larry Ladd and Laurel Holman up as we speak. So I've just promoted them up to a panelist if the board has any questions.
Thank you. I see Larry and I see Laurel's box there. So thank you all for taking the time to put this on for your meeting tonight. For the record, I'm Jessica Rittenauer, the Executive Director of the 300 Committee Land Trust. And as I mentioned, the property owners that we've been working with are Laurel Holman and Larry Ladd. The 300 Committee has been in discussions with Laurel and Larry for several years now. Actually, we've been talking with them since before they were the owners of this property. They live adjacent to this parcel, 2 parcels now. It was actually one property that was 2 lots were established, and Laurel and Larry were able to purchase the land with the intent of conserving it. So that has been, part of their vision right along. And as I said, we've been in conversations with them for a couple years now. The reason why we held off and are bringing this now is because we're working with the state Conservation Land Tax Credit Program, which has a very specific calendar of, when you can close on projects. So this conservation restriction does need to be recorded in this calendar year. So, fortunately, where we are in May, we have, plenty of time to work through the conservation and the select board process. But this project had been slated for calendar year 2021 quite some time ago. So I'll be very brief. I just want to highlight some of what the 300 Committee found to be really key conservation values here. I do have a map that I can screen share just to give this property some context because it is in proximity to BB Woods. So is that something that I'm able to do, Jen, on this? I know how to screen share. I just want to make sure I have proper permissions on Zoom.
Yeah, that's fine.
Looks like I do. So are you seeing this, the map The large,
Yes.
large pink
Yeah.
area is the 388 plus acre BB Woods. The property with the red highlights is the 2.07 acres. That's the subject of this conservation restriction. This conservation restriction area is adjacent to a trail that runs from the Hillside Drive, or Hillcrest, pardon me, Hillcrest Drive. There is a trail that runs right alongside this that, as we understand it, has been used, for many years, members of the public, for access into BB Woods. So this is adjacent to that trail. We just want to point that out. So as I mentioned, I'm going to end the screen share here. Bear with me. Stop share. It's 2.07 acres, 2 buildable lots. So in this case, the conservation restriction is certainly extinguishing the development rights. There are permissions for public access along that trail and potential, for future trail expansion. Significant wildlife habitat, also significant native plant habitat. Some of the items that are specifically mentioned in the conservation restriction, there's a pitch pine upland forest, white pine, and American beech. And the public access trail, as I mentioned, is written into the conservation restriction as a feature, a conservation feature of the property. So this is a case where the land is privately owned. The 300 committee, as a land trust, would be the holder of the conservation restriction. So our responsibility is monitoring and maintaining relationship with the owners on, maintaining conservation values. As you know, all conservation restrictions require town and state approval. So there, in the past, there was a municipal certificate that was required by the state that had to be signed by members of Concom. Now we understand there's an updated process where the state is no longer requiring a signed municipal certificate. They are looking for recommendation to the select board. So ultimately, what the 300 committee is requesting tonight is a vote from the Conservation Commission to recommend approval of this conservation restriction to the select board. And then that will be our next step, is approaching the select board for their approval before we then go back to the state for final approval. We do have, I'm trying to think of how the state words this. It's they provide what's known as approval for local signatures. So essentially, the state pre-approves the CR. They give us the go-ahead to present to the town, so that when we go back to the state, there should be no surprises, no revisions, that kind of thing, because they've already conducted their review. So that's where we are in the process. And if there are questions, I'm happy to answer any from the 300 committee, and the property owners are here as well, like we said. So thank you for considering this.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. Jen?
No, I think it's great. Thank you to Mr. Ladd and Ms. Hallman for donating the land or conserving the land. I think that's wonderful. Thank you. I have no questions or any other comments, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Anybody have anything they'd like to throw in there?
I'll just comment that I know this trail well, and I'm glad that the land's being conserved. I was concerned when I saw stakes maybe a year ago or 2 years ago that it was going to be developed. So this is exciting news.
Very exciting. All right. So we want to take a vote on recommending this to the Board of Selectmen.
Correct.
That'd be
Yeah.
proper protocol.
So I'll make a motion to forward this to the Board of Selectmen with our approval.
Steve Patton, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to add our endorsement to this. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
Excellent. It is unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jess.
Here, thank you.
Justin, if you could, yep, thank you. Please, move Ms. Hallman and Mr. Ladd back into attendees as well as Jessica. Thank you.
Jessica got to see that turtle today. An hour later, when I walked around, she was crossing the road back to the marsh.
All right, next up under other business, discuss use and disposition of parcel number 10-04-016-129 on Route 151. Jen, you might want to clarify that.
Yes, I will. Well, I'll add Jeff Oppenheim.
Okay.
Jeff, I just promoted you up to a panelist. Do you have your camera off?
And he's muted.
And you're muted, Jeff.
Hear me now.
Yes.
Okay, now let's get to the camera.
Go.
Uh,
Where is your camera? There we go.
there we go. You
Now,
happy
Jeff,
now?
yes, we see you and hear you, Jeff. I see, am I promoting
And-
Jeff up as well? Because all I see is Jeff's phone, so I'm not sure. And I see a Megan Hamilton.
Yes, that's Jesse and Megan Hamilton are involved in Hamilton Tree and Landscape. They're the
Okay.
son of Jeff and
Promote
Lexi. If you could elevate them, that would be great.
I will, and I think I can elevate Jeff's phone. He has his hand raised. Jeff, I'm
Okay.
moving you as well to a panelist. Okay, I think, is that everyone, Attorney Oppenheim?
Yes, I
Okay,
believe
great.
so. Yes, thank you.
No
Mr. Chairman, members of the Conservation Commission, for the record, my name is Jeff Oppenheim. I am joined this evening by Zoom by Jeff and Lexi Hamilton and their son Jesse and his wife Megan. Jesse is manager of the landscaping division of Hamilton Tree and Landscape. I am an attorney here in Falmouth. I practice on Locust Street, and I've represented in Hamilton Tree and Landscape and their limited liability company, which is Generation AJW LLC. That entity holds title to the real estate that used to be the Nickelodeon. It's an L-shaped piece, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, that's located fronts on Route 151 and wraps around an L shape to the airport road. This evening, I've been asked to talk about a sensitive topic, one that frankly I've never had to address in my 42-year career practicing law in Falmouth. And I do so with the utmost respect for the commission and for the role that they play in our community. I was a hearing officer for the commission before that process was eliminated, I think back in the 1990s. So I am familiar with the commission's work in our community. This evening, we're asking the commission to consider looking at the parcel which is adjacent to, on two sides, adjacent to our client's commercial property. It's owned by the Conservation Commission. It's approximately 2 acres, and it's known, and I'll refer to it as Lot 129. This lot was part of a 59 lot transfer to the town through its Conservation Commission back in 1981. The land court plan shows an L-shaped building, which I believe was a former motel on the site. My client's intention would be, if he can go through a lot of steps, which I won't go through this evening with you, but it's multiple steps that have been outlined by our town council, would be to move his landscape division, which is up on Route 28, to this parcel if they're able to acquire it through this process. It makes good business sense to them. This is a Falmouth business. They would prefer not to be in Bourne, and they'd like to have it on a unified site. Lot 129, in my opinion, and I believe my opinion is shared by others, is of low conservation value. We don't know of any particular values that would cause the commission, if they were in a position of acquiring land now, to want to have this particular lot. Again, it's surrounded on four sides. It's isolated, it's small, and it has no particular intrinsic value as far as habitat, etc. It was cleaned up by my client at the time that they acquired the Nickelodeon property. There was a lot of invasive species on the lot, and there was also a lot of pavement that we believe was probably from the motel that was on the site in years past. So the plan would be, if there is interest shown by the commission, to set forth to acquire a parcel which is far more valuable to our community. And my client is prepared to go out and do that and to try to put a property under agreement. But we don't really want to do that if the first step in this process is the Conservation Commission, and the Conservation Commission has little or no interest in us pursuing this. For obvious reasons. It's going to be expensive to move in that direction. We fully understand that there will be risks, even if the commission says, yeah, go ahead. Go out and find something that you think we will be more interested in, that we would be willing to consider this parcel surplus property. At which point, it is somewhat out of the commission's hands. It goes to town meeting and runs the gauntlet in town meeting to determine if town meeting is interested in seeing this happen. And then once if we get through the town meeting process, then ultimately it goes to the state to determine if they would agree to release this parcel. And, the quid pro quo would be a property which, as of this minute, has been unidentified, but we understand would have to be superior to what it would be that you would be surrendering. So I had a bunch of pictures, and I've sent them previously with mail to you, and I'm not going to try to share the screen because I have the feeling, frankly, that I will screw it up. But those pictures show the parking of several tractor trailers on this site in the front portion of the lot. There's an area where truckers are easily able to pull off and are parking on land owned by you. That gives that, that's not on the entire site. I don't want to mislead you. It's on the front portion. Anyone can see it if you drive down 151. Certainly, Jen and others who work for you are familiar with what goes on there. I mean, that's just part of the picture. I don't mean to say that that is the total reason for approaching you here, but the parcel is, in my opinion, again, not serving our community the way it should be, and the way that hopefully we can bring a superior parcel to your attention. Now, I'm going to shut up because, Mr. Chairman, what I'm really interested in is to hear, whether the commissioners have any interest in us pursuing this, or whether we think that, or you think that it's a fool's errand. But I thank you for the time. I thank you for the opportunity to present this to you. And I hope that we will be able to find a way forward.
Thank you. Jen, if you wouldn't mind, would you share that? And then, if
Yeah.
you give an overview of how we obtained that property? Brief overview. You know what I mean?
Okay, yep, let me, Jeff, I'm just gonna share my screen. I have the GIS up showing where the location of the property is. In case some of the
Absolutely.
commissioners are not aware of that.
Okay. I can tell you it is to the right or the east
Nope.
of, right?
Yep, it'll be clear. And Jeff, I may
Okay.
need you to clarify just the history for me. So let me do this. I'm going to share this screen. Does everybody see that?
Yep.
This is
Yeah.
151. This is just a parcel view. So this area is owned by the state. All this dark green is land under your jurisdiction. And just for context, the Coonamessett Pond's down here. Let me go down. Okay. This is currently the old, well, it was the old Nickelodeon, and it's currently Hamilton Tree, the landscaping division. It's this parcel right here. This is that lot 20, what'd you call it? Lot 29, Jeff?
I'm referring to it as lot 129.
129, my apologies.
No, that's
120.
okay. It's,
Okay, here's an aerial view. Here's the ball field off of 151. It's this parcel in here. So as you can see, Mr. Hamilton's property wraps around this property. And this area right here, I can dive in, is where the trucks tend to pull off.
there's a truck in the picture.
Yeah. And this parcel, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, was part of, how many parcels were purchased along with this? Was it like 40?
I counted 59
Yeah,
on the deed.
59 parcels I think purchased together for protected open space. And I believe it was to create a linkage from from the Coonamessett Reservation. It includes the Coonamessett Fields right here, and to provide the linkage to Crane Wildlife, which is up in this area. For a better photo. Nope, sorry. I stopped doing that. Now I can't get back to where I was. So I'm just gonna stop sharing. So yeah, I mean, the parcel has, unfortunately, not been cared for very much. Over the years, we have had an issue with the trucks, and after the Hamiltons purchased the old Nickelodeon, Jeff is correct. They worked with the conservation staff, and in particular Mark, to kind of beautify that area to help the town out. So that's kind of a very brief history of that parcel. It was purchased as part of a collection of parcels purchased back in the 80s. You said, Jeff?
1981.
Yeah, 81.
All right, so explain what you're looking to possibly purchase a different property and trade this. I mean, to put it overly simplistic.
Yes, that's true, Mr. Chairman. And I'm
It's-
my real hope from speaking with all of you is to get a sense of whether we should be pursuing a parcel or parcels to put under agreement, which we would then obviously through the staff come back before you to say this is what we're able to acquire on behalf of the town, as we start down through what I see as a 9-step process, which hopefully would result in my client being able to acquire this parcel through an open bid process.
I did email the commission Frank Duffy's email to Attorney Oppenheim outlining the steps. I sent that back to you in May 10th. So there are several steps in this process that would have to be overcome in order for this to be able to be transferred to Hamilton.
And I'm prepared, if it's of help, to go through those steps.
Know what that was. All right, so,
Jamie, would it be helpful if I read what the steps were, or
Oh, you sent it to all of us.
I did send it to you?
Everybody should have read it.
yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to be, clear that it's not as simple as us, accepting this and that's that. I mean, it has to go to town meeting, it has to go to the state. There's all kinds of process. So, and that was all spelled out in Frank's memo, so.
Correct.
So why don't we just, pass it around? If anybody wants to, offer anything or ask anything, now's the time. Anybody?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to, for the record, Hamilton Tree and Landscape has for many years done all of my personal landscaping at my property. And so I just want that to be known. I don't feel that is a conflict in terms of my being able to evaluate it, but I wanted people to be aware that there is a relationship there.
Fair enough.
So that said, I looking at this thing, there is a certain logic to the idea, and I would certainly entertain the idea of approving the concept for the reasons that Jeff Oppenheim outlined, that the property doesn't appear to have any significant environmental value. There aren't vernal pools on the property. It isn't habitat for rare species and the like. And if we can acquire a property that has more conservation value, I think that everybody comes out ahead. One of the things I think we have to be aware of is by going down this road, are we creating a precedent, and what is that precedent? And I think that's where we have to be careful and consider how we're approaching it. Those are my thoughts.
Pat?
I'm sure all the commissioners also received the letter from the 300 committee written by the executive director, Jessica Rittenauer, in her reference to the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs disposition policy under so-called Article 97 property, which this is. She made a compelling argument that it is not good practice for the town to switch out lands that have been put in trust for the public as open space. I'm just putting that out there. And I've had work done by Hamilton too. I think probably everybody on the commission has, but I obviously can act impartially. They do good work for all of us, and they also contribute a lot to the town. And I have to say, you know, I don't take that lightly either, but I think if the commissioners have read the disposition policy from the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, you'll see that Jennifer was on solid ground when she was voicing her objections to this.
Jessica, you mean Jessica?
Jessica, I'm sorry. Jeff, are you solely looking to get a feel? You're not looking for a declaration of surplus. You're just looking for a sense of the commission?
That's correct. I think it would be, you know, inappropriate for me to ask for anything other than a sense, because there's nothing that I am presenting as a specific alternative to the commission.
Right. The last comment I wanted to make is that this property may not in and of itself as a standalone parcel have unique value environmentally, but it is part of a larger area of land that is being conserved as open space, Crane Reservation, the Coonamessett property. It's part of a much larger acquisition by the town. And I don't know the history of the title, but it looks like the town has been working with the state to create a lot of open habitat there. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Betsy?
Okay, again, I work, Hamilton Tree does a lot of work at my house, and also they made very generous contributions to the Coonamessett River restoration. That said, I would love to be able to say that I help you, but I actually have it pulled up on my phone, and unlike the picture that Jen just showed, I show an area where that is there are a lot of trees there, and I don't agree with Jeff that it doesn't serve conservation purposes. Whenever we have a treed area, it's storing carbon, it's, you know, purifying groundwater as it pulls up water from the system. So any open space, naturally vegetated open space, it is true that the town, and it's on us because we're the Conservation Commission, have not been good stewards of that property. But as Pat pointed out, this is a major area, the Coonamessett Reservation, which is across the street. I'm working with Mark Kaspersik on restoration of that area as a sand plain grassland area. This lot that you're talking about is a treed lot. It's almost entirely surrounded by conservation area with a variety of habitats. It's probably one of the, except for wetland areas, one of the best birding areas in town. So, but specifically, Courtney, you brought it up, and I only know, and Jen can refresh my memory, I know 2 times that we have been asked to do this. One time it was with that lot at the Hospital Lights.
Yes.
And then that didn't go very far. And so you might have seen there that NSTAR, I guess, is it NSTAR, Jen? Is building there because they actually have 100-foot right of way on conservation property. And the only other area that I know that we took land that was bought under Chapter 97, is it, Pat?
Article
97 funds was for the Rod and Gun Club, and that was the Farley Bog, which used to be conservation land, but it continues to be under a conservation restriction, and that whole entire area has been restored to natural habitat. So I'm not in favor of taking land out of, basically out of open space.
All right.
I think it's a bad precedent.
Steve Patton?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think this lot, I was always confused how this one parcel of land seemed to be a commercial property with the Nickelodeon there. And then unfortunately they had the incident that sort of put them under. And the ball fields on the other side, are they ours?
Yes.
Yes. Those properties are still, owned by the town and under the care and control of the Conservation Commission. And Steve, and I don't know when they were, those two parcels, there's two there, and it was well before my time and even well before Mark's time, and Mark's been here for about 20 years, that those parcels were transformed into a ball field. I don't know the history of the ball field.
All right, thank you. I've always been, that's the only parcel on the far side of 151 as I look at it. And, you know, I was going to ask you to put in another theater, but then that would just be silly. But I do feel that there's reasons not to give back conservation land, but this parcel would work very well. And their carbon footprint, they'll just put more chopped wood up there and improve the carbon footprint. But I could look at this and probably support it. I would support it. Thank you.
Okay. Maury? You're on mute,
Muted,
Maury.
Maury.
Even if we move forward with this, which I'm not in favor of it, but even if we did, if the vote fell that way, it goes out to a bid process. And we're all sitting here going, oh, it'll be chopped wood, it'll be an extension of Hamilton Tree and Landscape. But it has to go out for an RFP. Anybody can bid on that. And once that happens, then Pandora's box opens. It would be great if we could guarantee who we would like to transfer property and whatever, but it isn't just Hamilton Tree that may get it. It could be anybody that puts a higher bid in, because that's how it works. I know it's not looking beautiful. I remember when the motel was on it. I remember when they built the Nickelodeon. The Nickelodeon, or Hamilton, is the only structure on the north side of 151 from Sandwich Road until Cloverfield Way. It's too bad it didn't end up open space at some point. But anyway, I just think it's a bad precedent. I'm not saying it's not a bad idea. I just think it's a bad precedent. And I would not support it, because I think and when we're gone, it'll make other conservation commissioners and other boards struggle with these decisions or wish they didn't make them. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter?
I believe that if we can have a trade of land to enhance the value of the environment, we should approve it, and I will vote to approve it. I understand there is a legal process. If you go out to bid, maybe one of the requirements would be that they have to bid with properties, not cash. And maybe we could have a better property. And that's the ultimate goal, to better the environment of Falmouth. So I would support exploring the idea.
Okay. Kevin?
I couldn't say yes or no until I knew what they were proposing for the property. In other words, I'm a cretin. All I can think of is this would represent a chance for us to basically pick a piece of property that might be valuable to the overall plan of enhancing the current stock of conserved land in the town of Falmouth. In other words, in many respects, it wouldn't matter what the dollar value of what Hamilton would have to pay for that property. As far as I'm concerned, it would be, would it solve a problem for the overall functioning of conservation land in town that would provide a value more of higher value? I don't know how you judge it. I'd probably leave that up to somebody like Jen to figure out. But that would be the circumstance that would enable me to go along with it. That said, given the 9 steps, good luck to you and the Red Sox.
All right. So I don't know. I don't know if this is a good analogy. Do you guys remember the Allenby parcel up at the Gifford Street lights? Allenby Tree, ironically enough, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. They owned a parcel of property on the corner of Gifford Street and Brick Hill Road. And this is going way back, probably the early 80s. They were going to put their operation there. In the town, I'm not saying this was Article 97 property, but the town traded them the parcel that is now done by Mahoney's. But the idea was to get them out of the watershed. So in that respect, that's a land swap that worked to everybody's benefit. So that, there could be a benefit to a different piece of property. The biggest problem is for us, I think, is setting the wrong precedent. And then the fact that it has to go out to public bid, we don't really know what we're going to get. And that's a difficult thing. Maureen, you had something to add?
Well, I did. We just sat here and put a CR on a 2-acre parcel that abutted the Peterson Farm and BB Acres because it was connected. I don't know.
Right.
Crane Wildlife is one of the largest piece of conservation properties in the town of Falmouth and Sandwich and Bourne. And I know it sounds like it's only 2 acres, but that's what happens is, you keep connecting all these parcels and you keep getting a larger area for habitat. And it might only sound like 2 acres, but it's town property and we're looking for ball fields. I mean, I don't know. It's just a bad precedent. We just put a CR on 2 acres. Here we are going to put a business on 2 acres. So I'm conflicted.
So Jeff, I guess Jeff or maybe Pat would know because you've done these kinds of things too. I don't really get, given that it has to go out to open bid, even if you were to come up with something that was attractive, how does that work? How does the open bid process work when there has to be a trade involved? Might there be 3 different people who were interested and they all came in with different pieces of land to trade to the town, and then you'd have to evaluate which you wanted? How does that work?
RFPs can be designed in a way so that there are alternative items that are evaluated for the preferential bid. It can be very complicated. I understand what Maury is saying, that, we're opening up Pandora's box because we don't know exactly what will happen. If we were to declare the surplus, and the town went along with it, and the town meeting went along with it, and then the state went along with it, you finally get down that long road, which, I think the state, quite honestly, looking at the EEOC policy, would look at this a little askance. I'm not answering your question directly because an RFP is a contract and it's written, I'm off we're offering this, we're telling you this is available, and these are the things that have value to us, and you should fashion your bid accordingly.
Okay, so it could be, you could say, you have to say what the trade would be.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I would think so. Tell me if you disagree, Jeffrey.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
And, certainly it would be clear to the commission and then to town meeting and ultimately to the state what it is that we would be including in the bid process, i.e. other parcels or a parcel, which is determined by, firstly by the commission and its staff to be of superior value. And not to be argumentative, because I really don't want to be, and I appreciate that there is conservation value to all open space, and I didn't mean to say that there was no conservation value. I think I said it was of low conservation value compared to other parcels. That's all I intended to say. If I
don't know that, Jeff.
Well, okay. I mean, that's something then, for you to check with your staff. Okay. I mean, Betsy, it was the site of an old motel. Okay. Yes, there's probably trees there. I'm not an arborist. I don't know, the particular value of those trees, the carbon replacement value, et cetera, et cetera. But, the whole idea behind this clearly is that we got to go find something that is so attractive to the commission that they would say, yeah, we like this. We would prefer to have what you're offering us than these 2 acres.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that at all. And I'm sure, I know Jesse and Jeff, and I know, I know that they have that intent in mind. I'm just, my concern is that this is Article 97 land, of which we have a lot in town. And we all know that there are a lot of people in town who are very interested in seeing what's going to happen here and have their own ideas in mind. And it's,
I don't dispute that, Betsy, and I don't dispute that this would be controversial for a moment. I was a town meeting member for, 25 years. So I've sat through a lot of discussions. It has been said, or by several commissioners, that this would set a bad precedent. I don't know that a decision like this sets a precedent. I mean, a precedent to me as an attorney is something that's set by a court. I think each situation, like you have been faced with a couple of situations that I was not aware of. You face them, you deal with them factually, you either rule them in or out, depending upon, the value to the commission and ultimately to the town of Falmouth. And, I'm very familiar with the Coonamessett River Valley. I have a home on the Coonamessett River. I have a very strong interest in preserving open space in our community. I wouldn't be pursuing this if I didn't think that in the end, my community would be on the winning end. Okay. I'm also chairman of the Coonamessett Pond Association's Trail Committee, which hopes to link the Coonamessett River Valley to the area around my client's property. And, so I appreciate the value of what we're talking about here. And I enjoy these open spaces frequently. But the Coonamessett River Valley is not entirely owned by our community. There are pieces in there that might be valuable to our community, just as an example. And I'm sure there are other places in town where we could perhaps afford linkage and, this property is not linking anywhere. My client has an wrapped around on two sides. You have a road to a former airport, dirt road on one side, and you have a very busy highway, Route 151. And it's not like there's no other linkage on the other side of his property. That's probably where the trail will go. That goes from one side of 151 across the street into the hundreds of acres that the town owns north of 151. So we're not, and the town gets to place restrictions as part of this process. They can say, we don't want you to build in the first 25 feet of the property, or, whatever it is that they feel is important. So this is not, I'm not trying to discount any of the negative opinions expressed. I have a lot of respect for the board members, many of whom I know, the commissioners. But I also think that the commission, in a general sense, should be open to this notion, because they may come out on top. The town may come out on top. I mean, that's the idea. If they don't come out on top, then don't do it. Don't pursue it.
All right, we need to wrap this up. Courtney, do you have something new?
Yeah, just first of all, a clarification, and that is, assuming there was a bid process, who's the one that evaluates the bid?
That's
Is that Consom? Is that Concom? The
No.
selectmen? The
Yeah.
state?
The town does. It would be going through the manager's office. He'd identify individuals who would review bids and then recommend the most favorable bid to the Board of Selectmen. If we declare this surplus, that starts the process where we give away our care and control responsibilities. We're no longer managing that property. I do one piece in this that, I'm trying to stay away from globalized concepts because it can be difficult to swallow sometimes, the lawyer, but when Article 97 property is deemed to be in trust, it's public lands. And once we acquire land under Article 97 provisions, as trustees, we have a responsibility to preserve it. And this Executive Office of Environmental Affairs policy says only under exceptional circumstances shall Article 97 property be disposed of. But in addition to what we've been discussing here, that the board, if we choose to go down the route of as being proposed, the state also has to determine whether this is land of equal or greater value. So it's a heavy burden to get this approved. I don't know if I'm undercutting my position on this by saying that. There's a lot of processes along the way that I think are going to look at this askance. It hasn't happened, I don't think, in Falmouth before for a good reason. And I would urge everybody to take a look at Jessica's letter. I thought it was very thoughtful. That's all. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Long-winded.
Not at all. That's okay.
No,
Yeah, I had one other point, and I just, and Jeff talked about precedent and said that's something the court sets. As a member of the board, and I think all of us know that, the decisions we make, because we're almost quasi-judicial in some senses, but the decisions we make oftentimes have consequences. And if, we make a decision in one case, the engineers who come along the road later on say, well, you allowed this in that case, so that's a precedent. So those are the things that we're conscious of. And this is obviously a tough situation. I personally think that I would support exploring it. because I don't think initially we're committing ourselves to anything. When it comes time to really, when the rubber hits the road, that's when I think we have to make a hard decision. And that means we have more information. But, I would support their making preliminary explorations. And they may find that the climb up the hill is going to be so difficult that it may not be worth the time and effort.
All right. Mr. Oppenheim, you got a mixed bag, so I don't know how useful it is to you, but you can evaluate what you've heard and see how you want to proceed
I
from there.
appreciate all of your time, Mr. Chair,
Mhm.
members of the commission, and Jen, I really do. And I also appreciate the difficulty of the question being posed to you. My clients will evaluate what they've heard this evening, and it will be up to them whether they would like to proceed to try to acquire something or put something under agreement that they would then come back to you and your staff.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's Jeff.
Good night, Jeff. Good night, Jeff. And Lexi, good night,
Night,
Jesse.
Jesse. Night, Jeff.
Justin, can you move everybody back in attendees? I
Look
don't
at that, huh?
ability.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
All right. Next up is to vote minutes. First one is for May 5th, 2021. Anybody?
This is definitely.
We're going to be here for a while.
I did not read them, Mr. Chair, so I can't speak to it.
All right.
I
Do we
wasn't.
want to table these?
Make a motion to accept them as discussed.
All right.
Second, O'Brien.
All right. We have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as written. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
I wasn't here.
Oh yeah.
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted the minutes of 5-5. Next up are minutes of May 19th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to accept as written.
Bird second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as written. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Kevin's frozen. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
thank you. Maury,
I wasn't here.
yeah. Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted the minutes as written. Next up are requests for determination of applicability. First up, Daniel and Eva Braun, 46 Waterside Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct invasive species management within areas previously approved under Mass DEP 254367. Mr. Newton.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird so moved.
Pat and second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Shaker and Christina Sedaz, Zivam, and I'm sorry if I trashed that, 56 Walkway Landing Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to vista prune according to FWR 10.18, 10B, and to remove invasive vines. Mr. Newton?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move. Have a second?
Walsh,
Hawk,
second.
second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Laureen Gray, 67 Sandcastle Drive, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to vista prune according to FWR 10.18, 10B. Mr. Newton?
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawk, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
And Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, William Stanwood, trustee, 96 Chapel Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to repair an existing Title V sewage disposal system and for all associated grading and landscaping. Mr. Newton?
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawk, second. I just had one question. Isn't this in the Buzzards Bay Coalition denitrifying area?
Good question. Jen, do you know the answer to that?
It's in West Falmouth Harbor, so I'm assuming, Maury.
All right, so nobody's recommended a denite. That's all I had. Thank you.
All right. The request is to repair the existing system, and staff recommends a state -2, local -3. We have a motion and a second. Betsy?
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Jason Wentworth, trustee, and the Kudashimu Realty Trust, 22 Tajmu Drive, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to replace the fire damaged second story, to construct a second story balcony and all associated utilities and landscaping. Mr. Newton?
Mr. Chairman, staff is recommending a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo
Walsh,
Hawk,
second.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Dennis Desmond, 43 Nashawena Street, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to upgrade to a new Title V sewage disposal system. Mr. Newton?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff is recommending a -2 under the state and under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
All Hawks Eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Fenton and Melody Brown, 159 Up Along Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to expand a patio and to construct a pool house. Mr. Newton,
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
All Hawks second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
All Hawks Eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up is a continued request for determination of applicability. First up, Christopher and Erica Devon, 178 Crystal Springs Avenue, North Falmouth, Mass, for permission to replace an existing deck with new support structure and decking. Mr. Newton,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant's requesting a continuance until June 9th. They've also requested that I share with you the application materials. So look out for that tomorrow. I'll send it to you tomorrow.
all right,
The request of the applicant, I move that we continue this to what date? I'm sorry.
6/9.
6/9.
Walsh,
All
second.
Hawks second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this till June 9th. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
All Hawks Eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until June 9th. All right, next up are requests for a hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up is Alan H. King, 85 Wild Harbor Road, North Falmouth, Mass, for after-the-fact permission to construct and maintain a timber pier, ramp, float, and piles in Trout Pond.
Yes,
Ken?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just promoted Tim Santos up from Holmes and McGrath to present the project. Tim, is there anyone else I'm promoting up?
Not that I know of. I
Tim,
believe,
Does the applicant want to be promoted? I see he has his hand raised. Alan.
yeah, I was gonna say, I know he's here. You can promote him now, or if the board has questions, you can promote him later.
I'll promote the
Whatever.
applicant now.
Whatever he'd like.
No, I just promoted him in, so he's in.
Okay.
Applicant is here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Tim.
Yeah, you ready for me to start?
That's a little, inappropriate.
Justin,
Justin, take Mr. King off of there, please. Tim, I don't know.
what was that?
I'm not sure. I
I
can
hope he can
start if you
prove he
guys
was-
are ready, though.
Yeah, please do.
All right. For the record, Tim Santos from Holmes and McGrath, representing the applicant. With your permission, I will share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Can everybody see that?
Yes,
Okay, the property is located at 85 Wild Harbor Road up in North Falmouth. The resource area is on or within 100 feet of the property. Trout Pond. There's a bordering vegetated wetland to the east, as well as a small fringe along the pond itself. There's a coastal bank associated to the rear of the house, as well as a coastal bank along the pond side of the house. There is an inland bank associated with the pond, and a portion of the property is located, this portion here, as well as this portion here, is located in land subject to coastal storm flowage. The reason why we are here tonight, we are looking for your approval for an after the fact approval for the construction of the existing pier that's in Trout Pond, as well as the set of landing and timber steps going down the bank. I'm going to zoom in for a second. The pier itself is located approximately 28 feet from the landward edge to the inland bank. The soundings along the water side, the pond side of the flow are greater than 3 feet. They're actually 4.4, 4.3. The float itself is less than 100 square feet. It is 4 by 24. And I believe those all meet your performance standards for construction of a pier. There is no proposed lighting on this pier, and there was no shellfish study performed, obviously because we're in a freshwater pond. So staff did have a few comments. I believe we sent an email back to them and addressed them. One of the comments was in regard to the set of timber steps there. According to the client, there were a set of railroad tie steps within the bank, and when they constructed the pier and float, they also constructed a new set of steps because those old railroad tie steps were dilapidated. And the other comment was they wanted to know whether this was a 4 by 24 float or a 4 by 22. In the narrative, there was an error. It said 4 by 22. It's 4 by 24. So we have addressed staff's concerns. And if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them. And I can stop sharing at this time.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Jen, you want to start?
No, I think the dock was discovered by the Marine and Environmental Services Department. We did send Mr. King a letter, and we've been working with him to get this dock properly permitted moving forward. Tim, can you repeat what you said about the staircase, please?
Yeah, one of the staff's comments asked were the stairs installed at the same time as the dock. We had spoken with Mr. King. He said the stairs were installed or constructed in April of this year when the dock was constructed, and there was an old set of railroad tie steps within that bank that they used to walk down to get down to the pond itself, and they were in need of repair, very kind of just broken up, dilapidated. They couldn't use them anymore. So it kind of replaces those old railroad tie steps within the bank.
Thank you. No further questions or comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Was there a pre-existing dock?
There was not.
Thank you. All right. Betsy,
I have no questions or comments.
Courtney,
No questions or comments.
Kevin,
No questions or comments.
Maury,
Boy, it's easy to have permitted after the fact dock than a normal dock. What is what is the dock built out of?
It's built out of timber wood.
Yeah, pressure treated?
No.
To be honest, I'm not positive on that. You'd have to ask Mr. King himself.
Okay. So on freshwater ponds, we always have cedar.
Mhm.
So I would like to know what it's built out of. That's number one. How big is the pond? Is there going to be a motorized boat on this pond? Why is it so large? I don't see, I don't see anything for if there were any mussels in that pond. I know, I'm a pain in the butt. You're glad when I'm not here. But when we have a freshwater dock, usually we have to know if there are mussels in that pond. There are endangered species of mussels in many of our ponds around here. But like I say, if this was a normal notice of intent with a brand new, I think maybe more questions would have been asked and after the fact. And those are just my questions.
Lori, I do agree with you that it should be, not be pressure treated wood. We only do the survey for mussels when you're looking for the Tidewater mucket, which would be mapped as a natural heritage, property. And Tim, this is not mapped as.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna say. It's not mapped as natural heritage, so.
Okay, well, I didn't see that I'm sorry, I didn't see that in the plan.
No, your questions are valid, Maury. I just wanted to clarify that the mussel that we usually look for, usually when we're looking for that mussel, it's in Flax Pond or a Shumet Pond. That's where you usually find the Tidewater mucket. So that's why you've seen surveys in freshwater ponds before. This isn't mapped, so it's not required to have one.
Okay,
And it meets the water depth for the freshwater docks. We went through the freshwater dock regs. It does meet that 3-foot separation that you do have in the front section of your inland wetland regs that everybody always forgets about, but we don't. So we did go through that, but I will have Tim clarify the materials. And if it is pressure treated, we'll have it removed and they'll have to rebuild it out of cedar. So
yeah,
Tim,
we don't even know how they put this in. There was no methodology. There's nothing.
no.
Nothing. So they get out of jail free. And, I'm not happy with it. I think that they should have to go through all the other performance standards everybody else does. It's a huge, how big is the pond? Doesn't even tell us how big the pond is. Because usually with ponds, there's no motorized craft on an under 5-acre pond.
Yeah, it's not large enough to be a great pond. I'm not the exact acreage. I do not know, but I can find that out for you.
Because the next thing, the size of that dock, usually a kayak goes in a little freshwater pond, not 100 square foot dock.
I'm not going to be argumentative, but I believe the performance standards say less than 100 feet. So.
Yep. All right, as long as there's no motorized craft if it's under 5 acres. Thank you.
Okay. Pat?
I'm a little confused about the stairs on the bank. If these stairs were constructed on a bank, aren't they in violation of our regs?
The board has, in the past, allowed staircases to get to docks, to access docks, to get down banks, to access the water. You usually take a harder approach when it's in a velocity zone, and this is not one.
Okay.
The goal here when we found out about the dock was to see if the structure itself could be properly permitted under your regulations. So that's why the staff has taken, or the position that we have is we've gone through the freshwater dock regs. It meets those. There's no size requirement for a pond within our regulations. But I understand the concern, and Tim will do some more research because I do share Maury's concern about the pressure treated wood, and we don't know what it's made of. We can show you a picture of it.
No, I saw it. I know what it looks like. I couldn't give an opinion as to whether or not it's pressure treated wood. And I'm grateful for Maury's comments. And thank you for answering my question, Jen.
Not a problem.
Peter?
When I was standing on the dock, it looked like pressure treated wood, not cedar. But I'm not the expert on woods. No further comments.
All right, Steve?
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If it is pressure, if it is determined to be pressure treated wood, then, are we conditioning it that it has to be replaced? If we approve,
Well, I'd like Tim to find out what kind of wood it is. And then the board can decide if you want to have it removed and replaced or if it's okay. But we do need to know what kind of lumber was used. But
Is-
Courtney, I mean, that's going to be up to you guys.
So
Yeah.
you're saying we can't close this until,
Well, I mean,
Well-
Maury wants to know what it's made of.
well, yeah, I don't blame Maury for asking that question.
Yeah,
Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
no.
Thank you.
And Mr. King was removed from the hearing, so we can't ask him.
Yeah, well,
I know.
Is it possible to close and leave the record open so I can get you an email tomorrow in regard to what it's
No,
made of?
It would have to be, no, I can't close the hearing and accept new information after that, Tim. That's a violation of the open meeting law. So, I mean, we do have June 9th available for continuances. I was keeping that hearing very light because of a large project that's coming in, but they're not going to be here that night. So we can always continue you to June 9th and you can do some more.
I'm not available June 9th, so it would have to be the 16th or after. I know I have a couple other on the 16th, so if you could continue it to then, I guess I would request that.
okay.
can we fit that in?
Oh, you're the enforcement, Tim. That'd be a fun night for you. Yeah, that's fine. We could do the 16th for Tim.
At the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue to June 16th.
Heard second.
All right. So we clear what we're looking for, Tim?
Yes, sirree.
All right. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until June 16th. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Heard aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawks eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until June 16th.
Is just out of curiosity, is that meeting going to be held live?
I
Yep.
don't know yet, Tim.
Okay,
I'm not going to know until next week.
alrighty, I just figured I asked.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a great long weekend, Memorial Day weekend. Everybody be safe.
You too, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
All right, I don't want to dwell on that. Next up, Peter Fang, Falmouth Condominium Trust, care of Cameron Aston, 192 Bayfront Way, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to stabilize a section of coastal bank using biolog fiber rolls. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm promoting Dave Martin up to present his project.
Dave, you're muted. Oh, you're unmuted. No video.
Here I
There you
come.
are.
Little photo jump, but I'm here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Share screen. Here we go. Let's see if we can make this happen. Let's get this. Share. Was I successful?
Dave, you did
Yay!
it!
Here we are at Falmouth Court, a great pond. Hope you guys were able to find the site. I tried to make it clear in the directions. Condominiums along here, walking path shown on the shore. There's a land under ocean, coastal beach, primary coastal bank, secondary coastal bank. Let's see if we can zoom in here a little bit. And down. The concern on the part of the property owner is twofold. Along this section, this is treed. The whole secondary coastal bank is heavily treated with mature trees, primarily oaks. Oaks are falling into the water onto the beach. Some of them are getting loose, floating away, becoming hazardous to navigation. The walking path shown here in cross section is at risk. If you had a chance to go to the site, there's one place in particular where at the railing, the path, you look straight down a vertical cut. So they would like to stabilize that section and hope that it revegetates. We've shown access for a mini excavator to come down through between two of the buildings through an area that's treed. No trees need to be removed. It's primarily lawn in the upper area, some low ground cover, very low, barely ground cover here. Then they would access the beach at the far left and periodically bring biologs down. Wherever there's a break in the vegetation, they can reach through, they'll pass them down or carry them around to the end. They being Jeff Norjo, I've worked with him in the past. He's extremely competent with biologs. Actually, he's taught most everyone else how to do that work correctly. That's a brief synopsis. I answer questions if anybody has them.
Thank you. Jen?
Dave, how many linear feet is it again?
Approximately 200, I believe.
Is that what your plan says? So you have 200. Just
No, I'm sorry. Let me re-answer that. There's 267 plus 188.
Okay, so it's like that's 400. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. And is it the same gentleman that's done the stabilization efforts over there in the past?
Exactly right, Jeff. I've worked with Jeff for many years. I hold him in very high regard. He has a tremendous amount of experience working in and near a resource area, and his quality of work is very high.
He has done a nice job over there in the past. Can you explain the tree cutting over there?
I can't. Well, I can to the best of my ability. It's not part of my project, but when I was at the site regarding the staking, I noticed the tree cutting, and I brought it to the attention of the property manager. And I think you and I had been to the site perhaps a year and a half ago to sort of introduce this project when it was first considered. And you noted the same problem at that time. And I think we both had conversations with the property manager. I'm told that since that I spoke to him over a week ago, of course, because that was staking, that there's been some internal discussions about how that came about. But I believe that I reached out to him today and he spoke to you briefly, because I see that as sort of an accessory sort of problem.
Okay. All right, so we're just gonna have to remind Karen then that they can't do that. The access points, Dave, that you said you wanted them to grow back naturally.
He's frozen.
What was that, Pets?
He's frozen.
This
His
is
computer's frozen.
interesting.
In shock.
Oh, David. Give him a minute. And David's gone.
Kicked himself out. Well, how about them Bruins, huh? All right, do we want to table this or?
Let's table this, Mr. Chairman. Let's proceed and then we can, oh wait, I'm getting a text from Dave. Back in a minute. Do you want to just table this one and move on?
Yes, please.
Chairman? Okay.
Yeah,
Make a motion to table this until we can get Dave again.
Carla Hawk, second.
all right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
All right, it's unanimous. This hearing is tabled for the moment. So next up is Robert B. and Elaine M. Bailey, trustees. The Elaine M. Bailey 2013 Revocable Trust, 132 Little Neck Bars Road, West Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct invasive species management, install restoration plantings, and to construct a patio, front walkway, and increase the size of the driveway. Ben,
This is Dave again.
is it really?
Yes.
Wait a minute. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. This one is being continued until June 16th. June 16th.
So moved, Gladfelter.
Carla Hawk, second.
Harris.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until June 16th. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
And I.
All right, it was unanimous. We've continued this hearing until June 16th.
Mr. Chairman, Dave Martin's back.
Is that a threat? All right,
We're going to try Dave again.
all right. Do we need a motion to untable?
Yes, you do.
I make a motion to untable.
Bird, second.
All right. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve. All right, we are untabled. We're at 192. Bear with me. Gotta go backwards. 192 Bayfront is back.
Dave, before
Martin,
you.
welcome back.
Hi, Dave.
Thank you. Apologize for that.
No, it's okay. Before you froze, I wanted to ask you about revegetating the construction access. I know that you had said it was gonna grow back, but I'm a little uncomfortable with that and I'd like to see it replanted.
Okay, we're more than happy to replant it. My suggestion along those lines was based on our previous access for that other project that we did. And we're using the same methodology, which is to undertake the work after the foliage is off.
Mhm.
We're doing the work in the fall, flush cut it, and Jeff uses a product, I think it's called Alternamats. And when I investigated that area that we were in before, it had naturally revegetated with the same plant species that surround it. It had not been overtaken by invasives. So
Okay.
I'd like to have the opportunity of the 2 years to see if that happens again. Certainly if it doesn't, we should be revegetating, no question about it.
Okay, I mean, the commission can take that same approach, that's fine. You said the other access points had revegetated quite nicely. My only concern, Dave, you're frozen again.
No, he's not.
He's moving.
Eyes
I'm
are
listening.
blinking.
I'm just listening.
Are you trying to, I mean, we could do that. That was just one of the staff's recommendations that you revegetate the access points. But if the other access points revegetated naturally without invasives, we could take the same approach and look at it in a year or two.
Right, and thank you for that. And I'm perfectly comfortable with a condition that the access point be fully vegetated before compliance is issued. Is that sort of where we're headed?
Okay. I think that's the only questions I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Newton, do you have anything to add?
No, Mr. Chairman, I don't. Thank you.
All right. Maury, we'll start with you.
No questions. Thank you.
Pat?
Did you say Pat?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
No questions. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Peter?
No comments or questions.
Steve?
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Betsy?
No questions, thanks.
Courtney?
I just have an aside comment. David Martin's Freeze Up is a living example of why we need better internet in this town. I have no other questions.
Another infomercial. brought to you by
Commercial
Mr.
for
Byrd.
Falmouth Net.
Moving on. Kevin?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Third, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close this hearing. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Third, aye.
Oh, wait.
Matthews, aye.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Dave, you don't have a file number for this one.
Yes, I do. Actually, I had to work very hard at that. They had a problem up at DEP where they misentered a keystroke on the fee, and I spent the last 3 days trying to get them to remedy that.
Can you give us the number?
Sorry, I'll see what I can do to produce that. This will be interesting. Watch this. Ooh,
Hang on.
hold on.
Because we don't have it listed on the DEP wetlands portal.
You emailed it today. Give me just a moment. And I can try to find that for you. So. Let's see. Yeah, SRO, hang on, here we are. Bear with me one more moment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
It's SE 025-4651.
Thank you.
And I can forward that email to you, Jen, when we sign off, if you'd like.
Yeah, I would please. Thanks, Dave. Perfect. You can continue closing the hearing, sir.
Oh, gee, thanks. All right. So continuing the vote to close the hearing and take it under advisement. Kevin?
O'Brien, yes.
Maury?
Hawks, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you all for your patience and for being here this evening.
Thank you, Dave.
Here.
Are you done tonight, Dave? Oh, I guess he is. Perfect.
Enough of us. All right, next up, continued hearings under a notice of intent.
No,
No, I'm sorry, I skipped. Hold on, relax, will ya? All right, I skipped one. Making sure you guys are still awake. Next up, Stephen Doyle, Black Beach Harbor Head Association, Black Beach Hills Road, Little Neck, Bars Road, Gilbert Lane, and Drift Road, West Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct road maintenance and to install stormwater management improvements along Black Beach Hills Road, Little Neck Bars Road, Gilbert Lane, and Drift Road in West Falmouth, Mass. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Jack Landers Colley up to present his project.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me.
We can hear you, Jack.
Great. For the record, my name is Jack Landers Colley. I'm a civil engineer in private practice. I have an
Hey,
office at
Jack, turn your
630.
video on.
Turn my
please.
video on. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Mute.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I should
No,
mess up.
start video. Okay, is that okay?
There you go. Thank
Good
you.
as gold. Again, for the record, my name is Jack Landers Colley. I'm a civil engineer in private practice, and I have an office at 634 North Falmouth Highway. I've been retained by the association and specifically Mr. Doyle to prepare the applications before you this evening. It's just a point of clarification that description of activities should, instead of saying create swales and depressions or areas to detain stormwater, it would be to maintain. Because this project was before this board back in 2013. Having said that, we are proposing to do the grading precisely as it was presented and approved by the board in the year 2013. The one exception being that guardrails and swales were put in place as part of the original application in 2013. It is our intent that they be maintained as part of this new approval process. By way of explanation, we applied in 2013. We were granted the permit to grade and make certain improvements, all within already existing and defined roadways. We asked for 2 extensions. We were granted those. And then I think it was in the year 2018 or 2019, the permit lapsed. And now we are seeking to basically reestablish permission to do bi-yearly maintenance of the roadways. And I guess I should say sometimes the maintenance will be bi-yearly. Some years it may be a little bit more than that, because one of the things about this project is being gravel roads, the condition of the roads are extremely sensitive to the weather that we've had over that period of time. I'm going to open, I'm hoping you can see the photograph, or let me go right here, share screen. Here we go. This is actually the plan we submitted in 2013. It's rather voluminous in that we have Chappaquay Road here, we have the Shining Sea bike path over here, we have the end of the road to the south over here, and these lines, if I were to expand the CAD drawing, would represent almost 1.25 miles of gravel roads. Again, what we want to do is take the existing gravel way, grade it smoothly in areas that are sensitive receptors, and that means standing water or bordering vegetated wetlands directly adjacent to the road. We would then super elevate that portion of the gravel road towards the swales that are were proposed to be in place, are in place right at the moment, to avoid, and the purpose being to avoid direct flow it from the roads into those sensitive wetland receptors, i.e. if you were to start at Chappaquay Road, go down the road, immediately to the left is a large body of standing water over here. So in this particular vicinity, we have the road super elevated from left to right to direct the surface waters away from that. That is the sheet flow of surface waters from rainfall away from the standing water to the opposite side of the road to swale areas. The closer the road is to Chappaquay, that is, the closer the gravel road is to Chappaquay Road, the worse conditions the roads are in. And it's intuitive, I think, because the closer you are to Chappaquay Road, the more cars need to travel that particular pathway. So if you're down at Gilbert Lane, or if you're at the bike path, one would intuitively think that the roads have to be repaired less often because they're less traveled. Whereas if you go down to the beginning of Chappaquay Road, this section of roadway is virtually used by every inhabitant of this area. You know, that's basically what we're intending to do. We're not going to, I'll repeat, we're not going to go outside the footprint of the existing graveled way. We're going to slope it as necessary away from those sensitive receptors. The company that's doing it is well known in the town of Falmouth and does rather complicated projects. Lawrence and Lynch is the contractor of preference by this association. They're experienced. They understand the needs of the Conservation Commission and the needs of the association. We'll do a good job. If you have some questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jeff. You can stop sharing, please. Jen?
Yes, Jack, how are these swales going to be maintained?
According to the last submission, and this should be identical, the association should be having them inspected twice a year. When they're in disrepair, they're to be repaired. If there's silt or other forms of debris in the swales, they're to be cleaned. Mr. Doyle has assured me that they have been maintaining them on an as-needed basis. In some cases, we actually have guardrails that separate the swale from the traveled way. In the past, when the guardrails have been struck, they've fixed them. And I imagine the program won't change at all.
Okay.
Most of the work has to be done by hand, actually, because they're fairly small. So I imagine they'll either bring in a mini Kubota to do some of the work, or it'll be done by hand. It'll be shoveled out. It'll be either part of regrading or it'll be disposed of.
Okay, thank you. No more questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Newton, do you have anything to add?
I do not, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Steve, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a necessary function and we've allowed it in the past and I'd support it again. Thank you.
Peter?
I agree with Steve.
Excellent. Pat?
No questions. Thank you.
Maury?
I agree 100% with Steve.
Excellent. Kevin?
I agree with everyone, but I just have one question. How long would this permission last before they would have to come back?
Well, your orders of conditions, Kevin, are for 3 years. And you could always grant an extension if the commission chose to after that.
Okay,
And we've done that before with this association.
thank you.
Not a problem.
Courtney?
The maintenance of the swales, are they filling up with sediment?
There is some siltation going into them, and that's why they're to be maintained twice a year.
What's the operation to maintain them? They get shoveled out? Is there a given base grade?
Basically, the shape and form was established when they were originally designed. I can only assume that they've used that particular threshold for maintaining them. I can check with Mr. Doyle. And if need be, we can redefine the depth of the swales to make sure that it's consistent with the original design.
Yeah, that's all I care about. I mean, it's a necessary thing. It's a good project, and it's a maintaining of what was been done. I just had that question. No other questions.
Thank you. Betsy?
I have no questions, thanks.
Okay. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Third, second.
Wait, let me check. I don't believe this one has a DEP number either.
Oh, you're right, it doesn't.
Don't have a DEP number, Jack, so we're gonna have to kick you over to June 9th and contact DEP to get your number.
Okay, I reached out to them today because I didn't have it in my email, so I will again.
You know
Is
who
this
you're
just-
working with over there?
Say that again?
Do you know what DEP analyst is reviewing this for your file number?
I can't remember. Kenny from my office actually spoke to them.
Okay.
What I'm hoping, I think I get the sense from the board that this project is going to move forward. The reason why I say that is, I know the association is anxious to get this graded as soon as possible. So I think it's fair to say that we can prepare them to do the work sometime after June 9th. Is that a fair statement?
Well, we'll close the hearing on June 9th and then you need the order of conditions. So that'll take, I'll try to do that as soon as possible for you, but I
Please.
can't guarantee anything. Okay?
Yes.
But the file number is not the fault of the commission or the staff, so.
I understand.
Yeah, there's nothing we can do about that. We're not meeting next week, so our next available, Jack, is June 9th. I'm doing this as quickly as I can.
Thank you.
Not a
So I'll make a new motion to continue this to June 9th.
And I'll make a new second.
Excellent. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue until 6/9 because of the lack of a DEP number. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks eye.
Pat,
MSI.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this hearing until 6/9. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you,
You're
Jack.
welcome. You have a good evening. Thank you.
You too.
Night, Jack.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Next up, continued hearings under notice of intent. First up, Kristen Wallace, 122 Ostrom Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct an addition with associated grading. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am promoting Ian McFarland up to present his project. Ian, I've promoted you up as a panelist. You need to unmute and share, turn your video on, please.
I apologize. My video, I'm having a conflict between my headset and my webcam, and it's either video with no audio or just audio. So I figured you guys should be able to hear me more than see me.
How are you going to share your screen, sir? Or would you like me to do that for you?
No, I can still. You can still share your screen because that's through
Okay,
the PC itself. So that
Okay.
should not be a problem.
Excellent.
We'll do that right now.
Thank you.
You should all be able to see that.
So May I ask a question,
Sure.
Jamie?
Yep.
So the question is to Jen. I have that we opened this once. Is this a continued hearing? Have we opened this?
I don't
Yes.
believe- Oh.
Yes, on 5/5. No, it opened on 4/21, continued to 5/5, continued to 5/26.
But we didn't open it on 5/5. Is that correct?
Oh, I apologize.
No, we have not opened this.
Okay.
No quorum issue. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. You can proceed, Mr. McCollum.
Okay. As you can see from my screen here, my clients are planning on basically adding a deck or an extension of the deck that is already there. They would like to remove this patio, this brick patio that is there, and this existing outdoor shower. This solid dashed line that you see going around is the frost wall and supports that the deck will be using. And they essentially are going to just replace the existing steps that are already there to bring themselves up to the new deck. There is also a screen porch proposed on top of this deck as well that will also be utilizing that frost wall support. And that is essentially the project.
But sweet, I like it. If you would, you can stop sharing.
Well, actually, Mr. Chairman, I
Oh,
do
I'm
need
sorry.
Mr. Carlin to share his screen again. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I do have a question, Ian, if you don't mind. I know that you've been working with Alyssa
Yes.
to try to get this project to go forward. We're having some questions about how you did your mitigation calculations, because you're saying that there's a net decrease in impervious surface, but it only seems that the only thing that you're removing outside of that footprint from that new, we need to see your whole screen, the whole project over there. So the new area of deck that you have over that little kind of grade change out in the field near the patio,
Yes.
is that counted in your impervious surface calc?
This part of it here?
Yeah, that little white part.
Yes.
That is?
Yep.
'Cause
And then with the removal of the patio that is underneath, it ended up becoming a slight decrease.
Because I mean, when you're out in the field, you're only looking at the only portion of that patio that really is being removed and not being replaced with impervious surface, because the deck is considered impervious surface in Falmouth, is that little bump out portion. And I just don't see how that little bump out area and then the new portion of deck is that the new portion of deck is less than that little bump out brick area that you're removing.
No, it's not just I'm sorry, it's not just this little small bump out here. Let me zoom in real quick.
Yeah,
It's the
please,
entire this little bump out right here that you're talking about, that step up?
Yeah.
No, it's the entirety of this brick patio.
Yeah, but then you're replacing that whole entirety with deck. Correct?
Yeah, it basically extends over to fit in with the plane of this wall here.
So you have that, maybe I'm just not explaining it correctly. I mean, the area of patio that's overlaid with new deck, I mean, that's kind of like a wash. We don't count that, that's a wash. So it's that brick extension that extends out, and then the new area. And you're saying that the new area is 67 square feet less.
Yes. And I'll double check that for sure. I will double check that.
We need you to double check that.
Absolutely.
Maybe the commission, it makes sense to you guys, but just from a visual standpoint, and when we were out in the field, it just wasn't making a tremendous amount of sense to us. So if you could just double check those numbers, that would be really helpful for us.
Absolutely. I will do that tomorrow morning.
Thank you. And the second floor deck, it doesn't have an overhang over that front screen porch, correct?
Correct.
Raise that question in the staff report.
Yes, from what I was gathering from the architecturals, and I'm sure if I don't think Marshall is in this call, but he is the architecture or architect that's dealing with this. But yeah, that, to the best of my knowledge, that is the case. Yes.
Okay. What was your architect's name again?
It's K Marshall. I can send you his information after this.
I
if you'd
don't
like.
have a K Marshall in here. Okay. All right. And then the other thing was the tree clearing.
Yes, sorry. I meant to bring that up. So I did have contact with the client on this in regards to the tree clearing, and essentially what she had said was she had hired an arborist and a tree clearing company to come in, and was told that the trees that were cleared were okay to be cleared. So she went ahead and cleared them. When I did bring up the issue of, when I do present this, then I'm sure that there will be an issue with that. So would you be willing to deal with that with any sort of mitigation or replantings that the commission had brought up? And she had no problem with that. So she, again, was going under the advice of her arborist and the tree clearing company. So I think it was just a misstep on their part to say that they could do that. But she's willing to work with the commission to do any sort of plantings or any sort of mitigation that you would require in order for this project to proceed.
Okay, so we're probably going to need just one more continuance, so you can check those numbers for me, and then we'll have to work with you on what the commission, you can hear from the commission tonight. For the commission, for your knowledge, we figure they're about, from the aerial photos and what we can figure out, they're probably around 6 trees that were removed. So the commission can decide whether they want some trees to be replaced, as well as maybe some additional shrub material. Okay?
Perfect.
All right. Thank you. And if the board's fine, Mr. McFarland can stop sharing his screen unless you have any other questions on that. That's all the comments I have for right now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Hey, Ian, if you would stop sharing.
Okay.
Please. All right. Mr. Newton, do you have anything to add?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think Jen summed up the staff comments. Thank you.
All right. Kevin, we'll start with you.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Maury?
No questions. Thank you.
Pat?
No questions, thank you.
Peter?
No questions.
Steve?
No questions.
Betsy?
No questions, thanks.
Courtney?
I'll make it unanimous. No questions.
All right. All right, so we're gonna check the mitigation calculations, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And then we'll have to work with, so what would the board like to see for the replacement of the 6 trees that were removed? Don't talk all.
Do we know what species they were, Jen?
Give me 1 second. Hang on. Of course, my computer's going to decide it's going to be slow as anything right now.
Can you get a
Well,
word?
usually we do caliper inch for caliper inch, so.
Hang on. Doesn't look like they were cedars, so it looks like they could be oaks, because, yeah, they were oaks.
For caliper inch for caliper inch.
We don't know what the caliper inches were. I mean, we could go, Ian, do you remember if there were any, I can't remember if there were any stumps out there from the trees?
To the best of my knowledge, no. I did not notice any stumps out there. It did seem like there may have been some remnants of stump grinding. So it did seem like there was maybe some disturbed area where that had taken place, but I didn't see any, normal noticeable stumps from somebody cutting down the trees. No.
Okay.
So it may pose a problem in getting the caliper inch on those if they've been
Yeah,
grinded
we're not
away
gonna be
fully,
able to-
but
Yeah, we won't be able to determine the caliper inch, but it looked like around, from the disturbance on the ground, around like 6 different areas, so. If the board wants, the staff can work with, the consultant and the applicant to come up with something to present with you at the next hearing.
That sounds like a good plan.
Okay, so, Ian, if you want to, email both Alyssa and I. Alyssa's not in the office tomorrow, Friday, but email us and we can have a discussion with you about what to put on the plan. Would you be able to check the mitigation calculations and come up with a mitigation scheme by next Wednesday? And if so, we can continue you to the June 9th hearing?
oh yeah, yeah, that should be no problem.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Then we'll do that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So what's the date? I'm sorry.
June 9th.
Yeah.
So at the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue to June 9th.
Heard second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this until June 9th. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Hello, Hawk's Eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
I skipped a step. Do we have any comments in the public
No,
chat
we do not.
function?
There's nothing in the public chat.
Lucked out, didn't I? All right, it is unanimous. We have continued this until June 9th. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Night.
All right. Are we, okay. Next up, J.M. and Leah D.S. DeCouteau, trustees, Minot 3 Realty Trust, 507 Central Avenue, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to finish constructing a shed and to install mitigation plantings. Jen?
Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Matt Costa up to present his project.
Mr. Costa, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Matt Costa, Cape and Islands Engineering.
Can you speak up a little, Matt?
Closer. How's that?
It's better.
Not that great.
Not that great?
No.
Really? All right, well, I'll do my best to
That's
speak
better.
as possible. So we submitted a revised plan for this project. It was, we're proposing a deck, a shed. After the fact, notice of intent application for a shed that was constructed in a velocity zone. And during the last hearing, we discussed the 200 square foot total allowance under the regulations and the fact that there was a previous application or previous approval for an addition over the garage where a portion of that was cantilevered. So we reduced the size of the proposed shed to stay under the 200 square feet. which includes the previous cantilevered addition over the over the existing garage. So I'm happy to share the plan if you like. It's not too much to look at. Would you like
Sure.
to revise?
Yes, please.
Oh, for some reason, I lost my plan.
Wasn't it on that list?
I don't know. Now I got all flustered. I can't.
Right
find it.
at your top, right at the top.
Right at the top.
Like the
Oh,
fourth.
those are old ones.
Oh,
One second. We'll get there. Hold on. I can just move one window out of the way.
Today at 8:00.
All right, there we go.
Got it, Matt? I'm almost there for you.
All right, so
Okay.
here's the shed. It's now 119 square feet. Over here is where the addition was that extended over a patio area. It was cantilevered. So the total between the two is less than 200 square feet. With this shed comes mitigation plantings. Comes with it 3-to-1 ratio of mitigation plantings to square footage of the proposed shed. So we have 350 square feet of mitigation plantings adjacent to the salt marsh, replacing lawn area. This, hands down, if approved, would be a net environmental benefit. And I believe that's the intent of the regulations. And we're hoping to interpret these regulations in a way that allows projects like this to go forward where there is a net environmental benefit. That's really all I have to add at this point. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matt.
Would you like me to stop sharing?
Yeah, if you would, please.
can I ask a question while that's up?
No.
Nope.
That's 2 in a row.
I could do it. There you go.
Again, eyeballing it, that doesn't look like 3 times as much.
Well, it is.
Okay.
All right. Jen, you want to start?
We don't really have any questions, Mr. Chairman. We just, the staff's comments are going to remain the same from the original staff report.
Okay. But just to be clear, the original shed that was started has been removed.
Correct.
So this proposal is for a shed that is now 119 square feet.
Correct.
Just so we're clear.
This week.
All right. Mr. Newton, do you have anything?
I do not, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Maury. Actually, I'm sorry, before you do, Betsy, what's the quorum on this? Because this was open, correct?
Yeah, it's actually everyone except Maury and Courtney.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, Maury.
Easy.
All right. Pat.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that the removal of the structure should have been done with the board conditions, not without. So we have the construction of the original structure without an order of conditions. We have the removal of the first structure without an order of conditions. It's not the way things are supposed to work.
Well, they did they did have an order of conditions for the driveway area that the shed is located in.
That's
So
not even close, not even close. A structure in the velocity zone.
I'm not suggesting that allowed for the construction, but the removal activities were consistent with the same type of activity that would take place to construct that driveway area. So there was no construction. It was literally picking up structure and removing it in an area that they did have a valid order of conditions for.
You do recognize that they needed an order of conditions, though, correct, to remove that structure?
I don't know if I would agree with that, but that's for you guys to decide.
All right. So I know you're looking at the provision in 1038. It would be 4F4. Is that what you're referring to for the 200 square feet?
Yes.
Now, history of the project, was the original house, did it have a garage? Did the original house have a garage?
Yes.
It did. The original, because that history has some relevance here in terms of an addition to the structure since the effective date that it was constructed. Do we have that information, Jen?
On the original house construction?
Yeah, I'm just curious because I'm looking at this and my look at that is the cumulative size of additions to the structure will be allowed if it does not exceed 200 square feet. And I'm wondering if there's been a couple of different additions to the structure already.
Not since those regulations came into effect. Matter of fact, that structure, the primary structure itself, predates the Wetlands Act.
Okay.
Wetlands Protection Act.
And
There
the
was
garage,
the RDA that I mentioned the last time that had that additional square footage, Pat.
okay.
But hang on, let me see what we have, and I can
And
only
that
go
was-
back to 2005 on this one.
It was more recent than 2005, I believe. And that addition.
No, what I'm saying, Matt, is I can only go back on the computer to permits we have from 2005 right now. So Pat, if there's anything earlier than that, adding anything to that original house, then I would have to do more research. But what we did mention the last hearing was a handful of years ago, there was some work done, and I believe it was Maury actually wanted to make note that 87 or so, 88 square feet, that we remember that was an addition. I believe I probably could even find it in the minutes.
Okay.
But I did raise that at the last hearing.
Okay. I have no further questions at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Peter?
No questions or comments.
Steve?
No questions, Mr. Chairman. I don't know where this is going.
Betsy?
I have no questions. Thanks.
Kevin?
No questions that I could ask.
Okay, so my comments are, I think what we're looking at is, the 200 square feet that we would kind of sort of allow, and they've already used up 81 square feet. So that gives you the net of the 119. I believe that's what the applicant is proposing. So if there's any other additions that have been done prior, if we don't know about them, we don't know about them.
There haven't been. The addition that Jen referenced was the addition to the only addition to the structure prior to the regulations.
Okay.
I have just one more comment, Mr. Chair. This provision, F4, is discretionary. The board isn't required to give an additional 200 square feet. No,
Correct. Right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
Nothing in the public chat function.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to close this hearing and take it under advisement.
Or a second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close this hearing. If there is nothing else. All right, Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Costa.
Thank you. Good night.
Night, Matt.
All right. Next up, continued hearings under an enforcement order. First up, Charlotte Mills Siler, 0 Nashawina, Lot 2A, West Falmouth, Mass. Failure to install mitigation and restoration plantings according to Mass DEP 253969.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The applicant, or the property owners are requesting a continuance until August 11th. The reason is they need to get a new survey of the property. We have been working with the attorney. We have received a preliminary planting plan from them. And we just met with Matt Creighton of BSC Group yesterday over Zoom. It was yesterday or Monday to discuss what the staff was going to need from the BSC Group to move this enforcement order forward. It is really important that we have an updated survey because the house footprint on one of these lots does not match what the original, what the approved plan was. So we just want to make sure that the structure didn't encroach on that 100-foot buffer to the salt marsh. So it is moving forward. We have heard from the attorney. I do need to reconnect with her this week. We have heard from Matt Creighton that they will be doing the survey and helping the applicants through this process, but everybody is really backed up and they just cannot get the survey done until August. They are still committed to putting the plants in by this fall. So I don't think that that would be an issue.
Okay, so what do you have for a date?
August 11th, let me just double check.
So we're looking for a continuance till then, right?
Correct. Yep, August 11th.
So also move.
Heard second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to continue this enforcement hearing until August 11th. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Word aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
I have to recuse myself.
okay. Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve,
Pat and I.
Steve, you're muted.
Pat and I.
Thank you. All right, it's unanimous with one recusal to continue the enforcement hearing until August 11th. Next up, Matthew and Ruslyn Siler, 10 Nashawina Street, West Falmouth, Mass. Failure to install mitigation and restoration plantings according to Mass DEP 253968. I assume this is the same thing.
And I have to recuse myself.
Okay,
Okay, I'll make a motion to continue this till August
11th.
11th at the request of the applicant.
Heard so, second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to continue this until August 11th. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Word aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
Thank you. It is unanimous to continue until 8/11 with one recusal. Next up, David J. Preston and Jane H. Preston, 50 Weatherglass Lane, East Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted installation of fill within conservation jurisdiction. Jen?
Mr. Chairman, I do not see the property owner's representation within the in the attendees list. I see some interested abutters, but I do not see Attorney Lawler. And Attorney Lawler from Osterville is who has reached out to me regarding this hearing. When we started this hearing and I did not see him, I did send him a quick email, but I'm not quite sure he remembered the hearing was this evening.
So can we proceed anyway?
I mean, I can present the issues to the commission. I have no problem doing that. But then I would say that we should continue it so that the property owner can have some sort of representation. Hang on one second. So basically, this is I'm going to share my screen real quick. So this is something that Mark was working on for a while. There was some work being done on the property and we got some complaints that additional fill had brought in. Mark was working with the applicant to remove the fill. We thought we had it to a point where it was stabilized, and we were contacted quite often by the abutter who was really concerned about the erosion into Green Pond. So what you're looking at is the black is the existing grades and the red were the original grades. So there is still a tremendous amount of fill located in this area. Now the board saw an RDA. Kevin, was it earlier this year or was it late last year? I can't remember. Kevin Newton.
Yeah, it was one of the two. I can't remember off the top of my head.
So the board saw a handful of months ago an RDA to remove this portion of the pavement off of this property owner stake. So you see the easement goes down like this, and the actual paved easement that the town put in, or I'm told the town put in, actually is not within the easement itself. So there is a tremendous amount of fill in this easement area. So Cape and Islands had done this comparison because they were the consultants for the property owner, and Matt kind of did a comparison between the original grades in this area where you can see it was 11, 8, 7, and now we're looking at 12. So we do need to remove this fill. There are a number of trees in this area. Some were planted, some were there, and then this shed is going to need to be removed or relocated. Now I know there is, I'm going to stop sharing, currently some negotiations going on between the parties there on how they're going to resolve this, the issue of access to the pond, the easement issue. So I know that they're working towards that. But right now, we're looking at having that kind of 3 to 4 feet of fill removed from the property. So that's what ultimately the staff is going to recommend, that an enforcement order be issued and that fill be removed by a date certain. And that's going to cause, it is going to cause some disturbance. There are going to have to be some trees that were planted be removed. They're going to have to scrape away the fill from the base of some oaks that are out there that might be damaged. I think they're oaks or pines. I can't remember off the top of my head. So it's going to have to be done very carefully. I don't know where the the property owner's consultant is. So my suggestion would be to continue this to June 9th And then I will reach out to Attorney Lawler and have him appear at that hearing.
I make a motion to continue it to June 9th, did you say?
Yes.
I'll second.
Hold on one second, please. You see that, Jen?
I do see that. So there is a public chat from Attorney Lawless, which is the attorney for the abutter directly across from that Mr. Lawler has represented that his client is in compliance at a prior meeting. Well, my response to that is the survey doesn't lie and the survey isn't misrepresenting anything. I'm going to share my screen again, Mr. Chairman. I mean, this is a survey done by a land surveyor and a professional engineer that clearly shows the spot grades in these areas were 5.4, 7, 8.2, and 11. And now the spot grade over here near the 7.7, there's that grade, that grade of 12. So there was fill put on this property, this site. There was. I mean, you can't, the survey clearly shows that. So if Mr. Lawler would like to dispute that, or the applicant would like, I mean, the property owner would like to dispute that, they're going to have to dispute that with the staff and the commission, because we clearly have that survey. And that's why it you know, this has been going on for a while. It took us a while to get the survey, and we've just been like, it's been on the back burner, but I mean, the survey is clear.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to continue this till 6/9. And you'll reach out to the attorney to,
Yes.
okay. All right. So again, we have a motion and a second to continue this until June 9th. Betsy?
Rod Pelter, aye.
Courtney?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, there's additional chats. Mr. Attorney Lawless is saying that, and you've received these, that his client opposes a continuance. Please see his letter of April 29th. And my client opposes the continuance. The last continuance was made at the request of Attorney Lawler. And that is true. Attorney Lawler was working with the staff, and we made that request. I mean, I was, like I said, I was on vacation last week. I got back this week. I mean, the last conversation I had with Attorney Lawler, you know, this was the date. I made clear that this was the date of the hearing. But I mean, I can't see how they would just not attend. So I think it's just a misunderstanding. I mean, I can't be sure, but I would like to give the attorney the benefit of the doubt and say that this was just a misunderstanding, that they just missed the hearing. And I don't see how a continuance for 2 weeks would really hold up really anything. But that's up to the commission. We could vote an enforcement order this evening and order the fill removed this evening if you really wanted to.
Okay, well, we have on the table a continuance till 6/9. We have 2 votes affirmative. So I'm going to continue the voting and see how everybody thinks.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
All right. Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Fellow Hawks eye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Aye.
All right. It is unanimous. This is continued until June 9th. Next up are requests to extend the existing order conditions. First up is FWG LLC, Valleymead Country Club, 125 Falmouth Woods Road, Falmouth, Mass, requesting a 1-year extension. Ben?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the staff is recommending a one-year extension, and before Mr. Byrd asks, the project has been completed. They want to keep the permit open while they go through the certificate of compliance process in case, something has to be, additional work needs to be done, additional mitigation, Courtney. So I suggest a one-year extension.
Okay, thank you.
Carlo Hawk, so moved.
Patton second.
We have a motion and a second to grant the one-year extension. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Byrd, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawk's aye.
Pat?
RSI.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have granted a one-year extension. Next up, vote order of conditions. First up, Joe Park, 2 Pierce Place, lots 8 and 9, Falmouth, Mass.
Give me 1 second, Mr. Chairman, please. Okay, I'm working on this. Jill Park was the
Vista Prune in restoration.
Yes, Vista Prune and Restoration. Thank you, Mr. Newton. Maria Hickey will be doing the work. It is on Salt Pond Area Bird Sanctuaries, and I'm sure my very capable staff outlines what is going on overall on that property, on the Salt Pond Area Bird property. Kevin, did you go through that with the commission?
I think we might have briefly talked about it, but it was certainly in the staff report.
Okay, so there's one major plan out there encompassing a bunch of properties. There will be 2 standalone ones. In order to get everybody to expire at the same time, we'll permit Ms. Park's proposal tonight. We'll grant the larger vegetation management plan project that's out there. They're up in 23. I wasn't inclined to issue an additional extension and wanted them to come back to the commission, but in this case, in 2023, I would at that point recommend them to be continued till 2024 when this permit expires, because it is the goal of Salt Pond Area Bird Sanctuaries, who is the property owner, to have one management plan covering all those lots. So that's why it's being done like this. So basically it's your invasive species removal, revegetation. I know that Salt Pond was uncomfortable of them doing any work south of that path. So we'll be talking to Salt Pond about whether they want them to work over there. We'll be meeting with Maria to ensure that Salt Pond is comfortable with the work that's being done out there. We've met a couple of times out there, but before work is to begin, we are going to be meeting out there again, just to make sure that the contractor, in this case, Maria Hickey and Associates, knows exactly where the boundaries are and what is to be removed and what is not to be removed. And I think it's a fairly straightforward project.
All right, anybody have anything they want to see in there? All right.
I'll make a motion.
Obviously, we'll have monitoring reports because the overall management plan on the other parcels have monitoring reports. So we'll do monitoring reports and a pre-construction.
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Anything else? All right, Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Byrd, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury, I don't think you're on this. Pat?
RSI.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Old Silver Beach Estates Homeowners Association, Lot A, Lot 1A, and 0 Tonsett Road, Falmouth, Mass.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is the beach maintenance. It's just a beach maintenance activity. It is a little, we are recommending something a little different than we had originally when we permitted this way back when, whereas they are not allowed to remove the cobble or the rocks, change the form and volume of the beach. They can remove the man-made material, man-made trash. They can remove, the rack line as long as they leave 10%, but they are not to use a screener or any sort of grater. They can go in there and, groom it once a year, but they cannot remove any of the cobbles or the rocks or anything. And I think that was clearly written in the staff report.
I think they agreed to that.
Staff did a great job last week, Jen.
Yeah, they did.
I left you in capable hands.
Yeah.
Yes, you
I
did.
didn't know that Cayman even listened to that compliment.
And I heard that I abandoned you too, by the way.
Yes, you did.
Mm-hmm. The abandonment of Jen. Yes, I heard that, Mr. Chairman. Little
Mhm.
bird told me.
So this is Gladfelter. I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
I'm skipping Maury. Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve,
And,
it is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Alan William, 24 Gilbert Lane, Falmouth, Mass.
This is just some invasive species removal and vegetation management. I think the only comments we have were not to use the 9-bark or the big leaf hydrangea. And then have another plan, and I don't believe they've submitted a new plan. Oh, wait. Class condition.
They did.
I think so.
I think we got it.
The one with the chicken coop and everything? Yep, I see it. Yep. Okay, excellent.
On-site meeting too, because we don't know who's gonna be doing the work. Seems like it's the homeowner. So we need to make sure that their methods are,
On-site, yeah, on-site prior, okay. Perfect,
Do we want monitoring?
sure.
All right. Anybody have anything else they want to see on it?
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Laurel A. Gormley, trustee, L.A. Gormley Revocable Trust. I'm not sure which name is actually correct. Care of Jim Kincaid, 42 Cape Carter Road, Falmouth, Mass.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This was to remove a deck, pergola, and stairs, and replace and construct a screen port and stairs. Removing some stepping stones and adding some mitigation. I think the big problem the big issue with this one was the mitigation that was required the last time was put in and removed. I know that they had provided some photos or had gone out, but staff is still not convinced that those plants went in. So I had a discussion with the agents today, and the recommendation to this board is to require the missing mitigation, but give the staff the ability to meet out there with the applicant's representatives, and if they can convince us and prove to us that those mitigation plantings are in, which we don't believe they are, then we will work with them to modify the mitigation at that point. But at this point, I think we really do need to condition that they are put the past mitigation in and do that prior to all of the work.
Yeah, we discussed that.
Yeah, okay.
There's also discussion about monitoring it in perpetuity. Does that make any sense?
No, you can't do that.
Yeah, I think it's
You
just,
could, but there was discussion about that.
Mm. Well, you can do monitoring reports for the 3 years the permit is.
Period, yeah.
We're gonna have them do the plants, install the plants first.
Yes.
The heavy-handed monitoring was because there was some, I thought the claim was that the plants were put in and they couldn't survive. So the commission wants to oversee those plants to ascertain whether or not they're surviving.
Nope, we can require mitigation, monitoring.
I think Courtney suggested, which we've done before, is that those plants have to go in before the work is done.
That's what I'm saying. Install the plants first, install all the mitigation first, and then do the work.
Right.
So install past mitigation.
Plus, they have 30 square feet for this project.
Yep.
All right. Anything else anybody wants in there? All right.
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
All right. Once again, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Sarah Girano Flores, Nutter, McLennan and Fish, LLP, 24 Willis Lane, East Falmouth, Mass.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is the raise and rebuild of the structure plus all of the invasive species removal, and they're adding a pool and a terrace, a lavender garden. I think they've provided all the information that the commission and the staff has requested. So.
And Jamie,
like to do.
Jamie, Susan, everybody but Jamie and Maury are on this quorum.
Everybody but Jamie and Maury?
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
Make a motion to have an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
Okay, you have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Anything else? All right. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird aye.
Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. You have issued an order of conditions. Reminder, that's all our business for the moment. Just a reminder, there's no meeting next week. Hope everybody has a great holiday weekend.
Everybody saw my email this afternoon, correct?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
So after we adjourn, we stay on.
Please.
Okay.
So if there's nothing else, we'll take a
I'll make a
motion.
motion to adjourn.
All right.
Patton second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Betsy,
Rodfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
All Hawks eye.
Pat,
RSI.
Peter,
Walter, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Justin, you can stop recording, please.